What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Keemstar here. Little bit of a different video for you today. A movie is out called The American Sniper, based on the story of Chris Kyle. I tweeted out that, did you guys know that Chris Kyle was a known liar, which caused a huge debate, and a video went up from this guy called OP Zeus, where he titled it "The Most Ignorant Man in the World, Keemstar." So we have him here for a little chat, a little debate. What makes me the most ignorant person in the world?
What makes you the most ignorant person in the world? A lot of the comments and the tweets you were making were just very disrespectful to a lot of different people. Number one, you were saying that snipers are cowards because they're shooting from a very far distance. And let me just say that they have to be from that distance, how far they are, because the people they're fighting against have no problems with killing themselves in order to just take out just one soldier. So if they're shooting from like a mile away, they're going to kill people with their snipers from a mile away. They have to do that so they can't be up close, because these people will pull out a grenade and they'll blow themselves up and kill people.
So what's more brave, sniping from a distance or willing to kill yourself to protect your country?
That's not bravery. Killing yourself blindly following their religion. Because you have to remember, a lot of these people are brainwashed by other people that are higher up in their country due to their religion. That's all they've been raised. They're not educated.
Who are the people that are brainwashed?
A lot of these Muslim extremist terrorists that you see, the ones that are doing these suicide bombings, the ones that are in the planes during attacks like 9/11, they are brainwashed into believing that their religion is the one telling them to do this stuff. And they believe that with their entire mind and heart, that what they're doing is justified by their religion, because they're not educated. The only thing they've ever learned is things like the Quran and being taught by other Muslim extremists.
Let me ask you a question. If the you're a United States citizen, right?
Correct.
Okay. Let's say another country invaded the United States. Let's say this other country had military superiority, or excuse me, the wrong word, had way more military force than you have here in the United States. Mm-hmm. And you wanted to protect yourself and protect your family, but you really didn't have much to go on. Do you think possibly committing suicide and doing a suicide attack on the enemy would be just?
No, not at all. I don't think.
Then how would you defend your country? How would you defend America from this superior army that has invaded America and is attacking its civilians? What would you do? How would you go about it?
How would I go about it? Number one, I can just say that suicide bombing would not be the answer. Number two, you have to keep in mind that
what would be the answer?
What would be the answer? Defending your house. You have a gun. You have a sniper rifle of some sort, and you're picking people off that are trying to come into your house. There really is no set.
That's not going to work, though. That's not going to work. The country that invades America and is killing everyone is way too powerful. Getting out a gun is not going to work. They got more gun power on you. What are you going to do?
Okay, so you're saying that blowing myself up and killing those people
would
make a difference?
I would say that that's a desperate measure, but it might be the only measure you would have to defend your country from being invaded by an outside source.
And defend your family, because now you're dead, and now your family's left alone with no one to protect them. So, like you said, the country invading is more powerful than us. So obviously, you taking out just one or two of them by killing yourself isn't going to make a difference.
Why did we go to?
Why did your family and countries left undefended?
Why did we go to a war in Iraq?
Why did we go to war in Iraq? Well, it started with obviously 9/11 and the attacks and how many people died on that day. Almost 3,000 of our citizens died on 9/11.
So we went to war.
You know this, right? You live in New York. You know this.
So let me understand this. Okay. You're saying that we were attacked on 9/11 by Iraqis.
We were attacked by Muslim extremists who work out of these countries. Correct.
Okay. So you're saying that these Muslim extremists were in Iraq, and that's why we went to war in Iraq.
They were in the Middle East as a whole. And
okay, then again, let's take it back. Let's take it back. Why did we go to war in Iraq? Answer the fucking question. Why did we go to war in Iraq? Answer the question.
We have to fight these Muslim extremists and the Taliban.
Were they in Iraq? Were they fucking in Iraq? Were they in Iraq? Yes or no? Were the Muslim extremists in Iraq?
Yes.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were. What Muslim extremists were in Iraq? Tell me.
Funded groups like the Taliban.
What Muslim extremists were in Iraq? Tell me.
I am fucking speaking to you right now. I am saying we funded the Taliban back in the 90s. We gave them a lot of money, and they were able to build up their power, and they started taking over countries like Iraq, Afghanistan, and all these countries in the Middle East. They were becoming
So the
powerful,
Taliban was in
and we
Iraq.
had to step into all these countries.
The Taliban was in Iraq.
Afghanistan, and it's not even just the Middle East. All of the other countries in Africa.
The hijackers in September 11th were 19 men affiliated with Al-Qaeda. 15 of the 19 citizens were citizens of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
why did we not go to war against Saudi Arabia?
Well, you know what? You bring up a good point, because Saudi Arabia does have a lot of the oil that we get. You're absolutely right there, and that's why we didn't go to war with Saudi Arabia.
Then why did we go to war in Iraq?
We went to war with Iraq because that's where a lot of these groups were based out of, and they were working in these countries. Okay, I don't have the exact statistics for what the
Here's an article from the Huffington Post where Bush acknowledges the absence of Al-Qaeda in pre-occupation of Iraq. Why did we go to war in Iraq? There was no Al-Qaeda in there.
There are other reasons for the fact that we went to war with Iraq. Are resources like oil a huge factor of why we went into there? Absolutely. But we had to make our way into Iraq, and then we branched out to other countries. And like I said, it's not just the
Why did we go to war in Iraq?
I just explained that. I just explained why we went to war with Iraq. Between the terrorists, resources, and awful leaders that were taking part, people like Saddam Hussein that were taking part, are taking control of these countries. We couldn't allow them to continue to do what they were doing.
Saddam Hussein removed Al-Qaeda from his country.
But he was an awful leader and was still committing mass genocide against his own citizens, testing
so is that
chemicals
why
against them. That's another
So Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, so we had to take him out, correct?
Also had weapons of mass
the CIA final report, no weapons of mass destructions are found in Iraq. No weapons of mass destruction were found in Iraq. No weapons of mass destruction were found in Iraq.
Right, no. Continue talking over me like a child. As I said, there was intelligence that said there could possibly be weapons of mass destruction. Something like that cannot be left unchecked. If they had weapons of mass destruction, then they could use them against us. We had to go in and we had to check. Obviously, afterwards, we find out that there wasn't anything there. That's fine, but we had to check the intelligence. You cannot leave things like this unchecked.
Do you know that there was more than 133,000 Iraqi civilians murdered in Iraq by us?
Do you know how many more were murdered by him testing chemicals and just mass genocide?
How many? What's the numbers?
I can't tell you the
You don't have them. Good.
I don't have that exact
Great
statistic.
debate. Great debate we're having here.
You're saying 130,000 civilians.
133,000 individual reported civilian deaths since 2003 based on the invasion of Iraq.
We did not go into Iraq to start killing the civilians as sport.
Did you know that? Did you know that?
Happen, okay.
Did you know
I would
that?
Much rather go. Continue, please.
Did you know that U.S. soldiers were instructed that if they were in a crowd of people and they were fired upon, to kill everyone in the crowd, to kill all civilians? Did you know that? Soldiers came out and said it. It's proof. It's policy that was instructed out to soldiers in Iraq. Do you find those soldiers as heroes?
Like that aren't as legitimate of sources just because they're saying, "Oh, that's what they were instructed." That doesn't mean that that's policy.
ABC confession video: U.S. soldiers describes the thrill kill of innocent Afghanistans. Rolling Stones, the kill team: how U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan murdered innocent civilians. Let's see. We got a video here that was leaked by Bradley Manning. Here's a video of U.S. troops killing innocent Iraqis. We never would have seen it if he didn't leak it.
Do you know how many of our citizens would be? You don't seem to understand.
The Daily Mail: Taliban vows revenge after U.S. surgeon on SEAL team shoots dead 9 sleeping Afghan children before burning their bodies in deadly rampage that killed 16.
You're reading the most.
Where
extreme...
are the heroes that just kill innocent civilians? They're heroes? Are they heroes? This was an unjust war. We had no reason to be in Iraq at all. The reason described by our government was because they had weapons of mass destruction. It was never found. U.S. soldiers are ordered to kill innocent people. There's no heroes in war.
You don't seem to understand
killing innocent people.
The type of people we're fighting against. These people.
I know the type of people we're fighting against. Normal civilians.
Here. If it was flipped and they were in our country, they would be killing, if they had the option to, they would be killing every single person that lives in this country. Your entire family would be murdered. We're fighting against savage animals in these countries.
They're no longer people.
And you have to fight them the same way they would fight us.
They're savage animals.
Savage animals is what we're fighting against in these countries. Look at groups like ISIS that are starting to grow more powerful now.
We're not talking about ISIS, are we?
No. But we're talking about these Muslim extremist terrorist groups and whatnot. And I'm saying that these people that we're fighting against are animals.
So do you think that everybody? Do you think that? Innocents. Do you think the majority of Afghanistans are Muslim extremists?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Do you think the majority? Do you think the majority of Iraqis are Muslim extremists?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, so shouldn't we be targeting those Muslim extremists and not killing thousands and thousands of civilians? And wouldn't you acknowledge that if our country was invaded by another country, you would defend your family? You would go out in the streets and try to kill those invading soldiers? Of course you would. So how can you call people animals and savages for them protecting their families because we invaded their country on false pretense?
We had to invade. You don't seem to understand
We had
that.
to invade.
We had to invade their country in order to see if these weapons of mass destruction were in this country.
Well, they
Did
weren't.
You find them? No.
They weren't.
Absolutely.
So 130,000 people were killed for no reason.
No, they weren't just killed for fun, and obviously they did.
They were killed for fun. There's plenty of reports that U.S. soldiers killed civilians for fun. Many of reports out there. It's a simple Google search away because you fail to seek the truth and because you fail to seek, what's really happening on doesn't mean that you are right. It's the lack of seeking truth.
Lack of seeking truth. You also think 9/11 was an inside job, correct? You also believe in those conspiracy theories?
You just made that up. You just made that up.
You had tweeted
Where did I tweet that?
You had tweeted things like that yesterday.
Okay, find the tweet. Find the tweet. Find the tweet because this is what I don't like. I don't like when people just blatantly lie. I don't like when people don't have facts to support the statements that they're going to make. I do not like when people throw ideas in statements that I said out of thin air. It makes you incredibly incredible.
I will find the tweet.
Find the tweet. Where do I say 9/11 was an inside job?
It wasn't those exact words.
Okay. Well, tell me what it was.
All right, I will. Here, this is the tweet. Iraq and Afghanistan did not attack us on 9/11. I lost faith in you for being able to use Google.com. Insinuating that these terrorist organizations that work in these countries did not attack us on 9/11.
Why did I insinuate that when I simply said Iraq and Afghanistan did not attack us on 9/11? That's exactly what I said. You read exactly what I said. You read it word for word, but then you twisted my words in this conversation to be something else. What is wrong with you?
You could see how that was insinuated, saying that these groups that are working out of these countries...
It didn't say anything about groups. It said 2 countries did not attack us on 9/11.
Well, you made it a very broad statement, and you can see how that would be easily misconstrued.
How is it a broad statement? It says 2 countries that we invaded did not attack us on 9/11.
Saying people a part of these countries had nothing to do with it, which is absolutely incorrect. People working in these countries did have to do with those attacks on 9/11. Terrorist groups working out of those countries. They absolutely had parts to do with it.
Al-Qaeda was in Afghanistan. Al-Qaeda was, in fact, in Afghanistan.
Correct.
Why did we go to our war in Iraq?
I answered that question countless times. We've given many reasons. The main one being we believe they had weapons of mass destruction, which was then later proven to be false.
So, those 133,000 people were killed in vain, correct?
Do you know how many more people, how many more Muslims are killed by other Muslims in these countries? Are you familiar with things like the Sharia law?
So what you're saying is, if someone kills someone, then we have a right to kill more people.
That we're not
That
killing
two
more
wrongs do in fact equal a right.
Way more people. Way more.
You are
Muslims.
saying that two wrongs do in fact equal a right, correct?
You are familiar. That's not what I'm saying at all. You are familiar with the Taliban laws, right? And other laws that are in control of these countries, how the women aren't allowed to.
Do you think Chris Kyle was a hero?
Do I think Chris Kyle was a fantastic person? Absolutely not. He lied about a lot of stuff. Specifically more when in between his tours, things he did here in the United States, whether it be punching Jesse Ventura or stopping a carjacking. A lot of those were exaggerated. But
Chris Kyle said that he was on top of the Superdome after Katrina shooting Americans that were looting.
Right, that's an exaggeration.
What a hero, shooting Americans.
It's probably a lie.
Do you think the film American Sniper is based off of propaganda? Do you think it's a propaganda movie?
No, it's not a propagandist movie. It's a story showing the bravery of this guy who went through 4 tours in Iraq and almost gave his life every single time.
What is more brave?
On one of those tours.
What is more brave? A sniper that's, hiding in the distance, shooting people from far away. Let me ask the question. Please let me ask the question. What's more brave? What's more brave? Someone, close and hand-to-hand combat, or close enough where, let's say a person 50 yards away or whatever, exchanging rifle fire back and forth, or a sniper that's far away. What's more brave? Who's in more danger? Who's in more danger, the sniper or the people in the front lines? Who's in more danger? Who's more brave?
Obviously, the people in the front lines are in more danger.
Exactly. So,
how many lives Chris Kyle's had to save from that distance? Okay, you people say, oh, look at all the women and children he killed. Do you know that these Muslim extremist groups that are raising these children and women to be brainwashed, because you have to remember these Taliban laws, they don't allow for women to be educated at all. And these children that are
here's
young,
the problem
they are
is
only raised, they're strapping bombs to retarded children and sending them into crowds to kill people. Okay, so
and that's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. I agree. But you got to understand is what you're doing. What you're doing is you're taking a few people in these countries that are extremists, Muslim extremists, that are definitely the bad guys that we should take out, right? You're taking them, and because they are there, you're saying it's okay to murder all these other innocent people that have nothing to do with it.
No, he's not sitting up on a fucking cliff or in a bush, just taking out as many of these citizens as he can.
Reports have come out that those U.S. soldiers did in fact do that.
We're talking about
reports have come out that
about Chris Kyle right now.
So you believe that Chris Kyle?
Again, you're making this.
You believe that all? Okay, you believe that all 166 confirmed kills from Chris Kyle, he killed terrorists. They were all terrorists. They were all bad guys.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay then.
As I was trying to explain before you interrupted me. A lot of those kills were him having to make judgment calls right there in the spot. You can't place. You have to place yourself.
So are you willing to admit that Chris Kyle killed innocent people?
Yes, he absolutely did. But because they had to.
There we go. How do you find a hero in that? How do you find a hero in that? I don't find a hero in that. I don't find a hero.
You're not placing yourself in his shoes.
If these wars were just,
you have to decide whether or not to shoot a child because you think he has a bomb on his back, okay? Or let 10 innocent people die. You have to make those judgment calls in the heat of the moment. You have to make those judgment calls. Obviously, afterwards, it's awful that innocent people died, but he had to make those judgment calls. He was not killing those people for fun or for sport. He had to make heat of the moment.
He wasn't killing those people for fun or for sport. I love that statement, and this is why. This is what Chris Kyle said. He said, "I hate them damn savages," talking about Iraqis, and I've been fighting and I always will. I love killing bad guys. Even with the pain, I love what I was doing. Maybe war isn't really fun, but I certainly was enjoying it. Those are statements from Chris Kyle.
Enjoying the bravery and serving his country and killing terrorists. Nowhere in that did he say he just enjoyed killing innocent civilians. Nowhere in that did he say
war isn't fun, but I was certainly enjoying it. Statement from Chris Kyle.
Nowhere in that did he say he was enjoying killing
You look
citizens.
like a fool.
You
sound like a fool. You made statements saying that I was the most ignorant person in the world. Do you still think I'm the most ignorant person in the world?
Nowhere in those statements did he say that he was enjoying killing citizens.
Do you
He
still?
said he was enjoying. If anything, he said he was enjoying killing the savages and the bad guys in this country.
Do you still think I'm the most ignorant person in the world?
Yes, absolutely. You're making judgment calls on a guy.
So you do still think that I am the most ignorant person in the world?
Absolutely.
That's great.
You're sitting there making judgment
Who was
calls
Pat Tillman? Who was Pat Tillman?
You sit there and you make judgment calls. Yet you make videos about Call of Duty drama. All right, you sit in your house and you do that, but you're gonna make judgment calls on a guy who served 4 tours in Iraq?
I'm an American.
Is that what you're gonna tell me?
I'm an American. I love my country, and I love my troops, and I love the fact that I have the freedom to call out things that I think is wrong with my government and the decisions that they make. That's what being American is. That's the fundamental belief. That's why we broke away from Great Britain, to have freedom of speech, to be able to say that our government is doing something wrong.
I can absolutely agree with you there that our government is not perfect at all. But by you saying those wars are unjust, you're completely disrespecting all of the soldiers that died in those wars and in those battles. You're completely
so you're saying that's absolutely
that they gave their lives. You're saying that they gave their lives for nothing. I hope one day you run into a father with a son that died in one of those wars.
So let me ask you a question.
They can tell you how they feel about you disrespecting.
Let me ask you a question.
Go.
Let me ask you a question. All right. Let's say there was an unjust war. Let's not talk about this. Let's say there was an unjust war. Let's say we attacked a country for no reason. We shouldn't have attacked them, right? Can you agree that this might potentially happen?
That we just attack a country for no reason?
Yeah.
No reason at all. No.
Okay, well, I need you to imagine that we did, all right?
Okay.
Imagine that we did. We were involved in an unjust war, and we attacked a country for no reason, all right? And let's say during this campaign, U.S. soldiers died. Would you not speak about it?
Speak about it in what way?
Would you not say this was an unjust war because you might fear that you would insult the dead?
All right, if anything, if that hypothetical situation were to happen, those soldiers would be told that their war was just. So they're going into that battle thinking that their war was just, number one.
So I'm saying...
you shouldn't. No, you're right. You shouldn't speak ill of the dead like that. But that's a complete hypothetical situation that's not going to happen. We're not just going to send our troops into a country for absolutely no reason.
If this did happen, let's imagine that it did happen, all right? Would you be afraid to say these wars were unjust because it might disrespect the soldiers that died in the unjust war?
Would I be afraid to say that the war was unjust to disrespect them? That's what you're asking?
Yeah. That's exactly what I'm asking. See, it's things like this where we just don't think outside the box, that we don't put ourselves in the shoes of other people. It's where we get really arrogant and ignorant, and we don't think. We don't think. When you stop thinking, when you stop trying to see points of views from other people and other sides of the story, that's when you become incredibly, incredibly ignorant. You sound ignorant.
You were just saying.
Now let me ask you, who's Pat Tillman?
Pat Tillman was a soldier that was killed.
He was a soldier that was killed.
Yeah, he enlisted after 9/11.
Yep. He was actually an NFL star with the Arizona Cardinals, and he gave up making millions in the NFL to defend his country.
Correct.
How'd he die?
How did he die? He was killed while he was over in Afghanistan. I'm not sure exactly how he was died. If you give me a second to look it up.
Well, let's read it.
All right, let's read it together.
In 2002, Pat Tillman left his successful football career with the Arizona Cardinals to join the U.S. Army. He was killed in Afghanistan in 2004. The official story was that he was shot by enemy forces during an ambush.
Right, and then he was found to have been killed by friendly fire. I do remember the story.
Yeah. The government lied. The Bush administration covered up that he was killed by friendly fire.
Look, and you're correct there. I'm not saying the government is perfect at all. I know the government is very corrupt, and they lie about things all the time, just like the Benghazi incident.
Did you know that Pat Tillman was writing stories back home saying that this war was complete BS? Did you know that? Did you investigate it? See, it's the thing, when you don't research the subject, you just sound ignorant. when you don't research everything and you pay attention to everything, you just say stuff that isn't true.
This is one guy.
You need to have facts. You need to have things to back up your statements, or you come across like a complete idiot.
He was one guy in the war, and he wrote back that whatever he felt differently about the war. He felt that the war wasn't just. That's one person out of how many soldiers? That's
Pat Tillman was a very important person. He was a person that gave up a NFL career where he would make millions of dollars to serve his country.
As an Army Ranger, absolutely. And he was killed in a friendly fire incident, and the government lied about it.
Do you have any idea? Do you have any idea how many soldiers have come back from these wars that said the war is BS, that were not there to kill terrorists?
There's a lot of situations where these people say that, obviously, but there's a larger majority.
These wars were not just. These wars were not just. We killed so many innocent people. For what? Do you think it made our country safer? Did it make us safer by going and killing innocent people in other countries? No. No. These wars were unjust. It didn't make us safer. It put us in more danger. It made us hate it around the world. You are arrogant. You're an idiot. And how dare you upload this video stating the most ignorant man in the world, Keemstar, when you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
You're absolutely incorrect.
I'll give you the final word because I'm done.
Please go.
You have the final word. I'm done.
Oh, I have the final word. Okay, number one, what was I going to say? You're bringing up people like Pat Tillman. That's one example. You want to use him for your side. I brought up someone like Chris Kyle, and you weren't able to put yourself in his shoes and understand his judgment calls. So you're saying that I'm ignorant. You have your side, and I have my side. We have very different opposing views on this. But in the end, what you don't seem to realize is that we've saved countless lives by going into these countries and killing these terrorists. And the reason you're not thinking about that is because we haven't heard about these terrorist attacks that we have prevented, and the ones that never even formed because of all the Muslim extremists that we've killed in these countries. And how many people here in the USA are alive today because we killed those terrorists. That's my final word. You don't understand that.
We killed 133,000 terrorists in Iraq. We killed, 20,000 terrorists in Afghanistan.
Obviously, there's going to be casualties. Obviously, there's going to be casualties.
We've killed more civilians than bad guys. How do you explain that?
There's just simply more civilians than there are terrorists. And obviously, there's going to be crossfire and casualty. You don't seem to... There's going to be casualties.
U.S. soldiers were ordered to kill civilians. They were ordered to.
All right,
fact.
So a couple soldiers say that. Okay. All right, that doesn't mean that's the USA's policy on that.
All right.
A couple soldiers say they were told that by their higher-ups. That doesn't mean that's the USA's policy.
These wars were unjust. You're a fool. That's the end of it. Thanks.
You're absolutely incorrect.
Good conversation. Do you have anything else to say? I don't want to cut you off.
No, I don't have anything else to say.
All right, good conversation.